the election's on Monday. I believe this is still the way that we're thinking about the process full steam ahead.
Can I
And so for
explain what
now,
my concern is, the TLDR in the letter?
yes, go ahead.
By having a ballot that forces the declaration of residency, where while residency is something that would need to be made available to government officials and law enforcement when
That's not
upholding.
true.
Well, let me finish, and then it presents a concern as now you are in a position where, say, I need to give funding to citizens of residents of Los Santos County. How do I validate whether or not they are a resident? You then also, in addition to this, create a circumstance where if you do not declare yourself in that ballot, what is your residency at that stage? These things should have been written down in legislation anytime in the last 3 months, be it the electoral process or the residency. But you said that's not true. What aspect?
I can understand your reservations considering the use of the word residency, specifically because you are the mayor for the residents of Los Santos. So I can very much understand your point. My understanding and belief that's coming from DOJ is that the emphasis on the word of the residents isn't necessarily where we're getting stuck. This should have technically even been implemented during your initial election.
Agreed.
It wasn't.
We tried to, by the way.
I was wondering why you didn't actually.
I tried and I was told no. There's no way to do it by the DOJ.
By the DOJ.
Yeah.
I wasn't appointed at that time, so I unfortunately have no actual context. So this is entirely just having to do with voting at this moment in time. While yes, you have to quote declare residency, it shouldn't have actually that much of an impact aside from when taxes come to selling and purchasing goods, property purchases. But to your point, I can see with us using the word residency, why you'd be so concerned.
So let's say, for example, you voted for me, right? And on that ballot, you are making a singular choice that says, I am declaring myself a resident of Los Santos County and voting for Nino Chavez. Right? You are now a resident of Los Santos County officially.
Officially, correct.
Now you go and request a event subsidy for me. And I say, oh, fantastic, Justice. I can certainly do that. What's your residency?
See, that's the thing, though. That wouldn't actually play any kind of a factor other than aside from the fact I would say if the event was taking place in Los Santos is where your interest should lay.
It would if it wasn't.
See your point.
That would be the case if it wasn't for the fact that mine, Blaine, and state legislation references scopes around residencies of particular counties. There's another
good point.
Yeah, and that's kind of what we highlighted, is that your declaration of residency cannot be tied to the ballot. It needs to be something that is done separate because it also it creates a circumstance where you're the only way to become a resident because you're effectively turning. We didn't have residencies for anything prior to this, right?
Yeah.
And so you could leave it open that you are a resident of both counties, right? You could make that argument.
If you have properties in both, technically, yes.
But after this election, now there are residents. And then those who don't declare, they are undeclared residents of nowhere. And what is their process of gaining residency?
What does it actually change? And also, by the way, to the point of what is not true, there's no reason law enforcement would need to know where you quote unquote declare.
They would.
But I don't actually see the grand scheme of what this changes, aside from to your point of there is legislation put in place of when you're talking about residency
I'll give you an
Los
example.
Santos,
commercial property in Los Santos County must be owned by Los Santos County residents.
Is that actually? Wait a minute.
No, it's a hypothetical.
Oh, okay. I was
of course, and that's of course something that we would want to be passing, right?
I would agree. if
And
that is the system we are trying to put in place right now.
yeah, but
I mean,
so
typically,
it's a
go ahead.
reasonable hypothetical, right? This isn't like this is a reasonable thing that people are going to start asking for. But I did a quick audit of some of the legislation. There's about 8 that reference residents of
Residency.
Blaine and residents of Los Santos County. So immediately, in order to uphold that that legislation,
Right.
be it for funding requests or be it scoped around what a resident can or cannot do, that inherently requires, if you're upholding it from a law enforcement perspective, they need access to the residency. When it comes to administration, from like the mayors, we need access to the residency. And then
I can
those who are
understand for
not
the mayor,
residents,
but you don't have me sold on necessary law enforcement. If you do a crime in Los Santos, you get charged with
I
the
think
charges for Los
G6
Santos. Same
legislation,
thing. For what effect?
the ability to stand their ground at the G6
Can you not do that in
stockade.
Blaine County or something?
No,
Or?
you can't. I sent a letter to Andy Jones 3 weeks ago, handwritten, and she didn't respond. So
Then to that exact same mindset, they are allowed to do that in the city. They are not allowed to do that in Blaine County. Their residency doesn't change that.
Oh, here we go. The air marshals, the airspace. If you got helicopters, right?
Oh, this legislation, right?
Yeah. But so these are, I'm pointing these out, but
They're good. Yeah, no, you're right. Just so you know, while I might be a little bit
will
of
this
a
work
bump
for
in the road, I
now?
understand.
Right? Will this work for now? The fact that I'm even pointing some of these out should highlight that future legislation is now bound by this, right? Now, anytime we reference Los Santos County residents, like all it takes is someone enforces like helicopters, or someone enforces any legislation that has law enforcement involvement, can require, proof of residency in the incident, proof of residency when it goes to court, right? Like, how is this maintained? Who maintains it? What is a residency? What are the rights to residency? There's just, quite frankly, I would put it this way. If the clear intent of that posting is that you should get one vote and you pick for one mayor, right?
Mm-hmm.
That is the intent of it. And if
Correct.
that's the route to take, then say that, right? Don't
I agree.
introduce
I
residents.
think it was the residency that we're all getting
Precisely.
hooked up on. Oh my god, my words.
That's exactly it. But
if that's the fear, then I can 100% approach the rest of the DOJ with that angle. I think there was just the language used in the open letter was seeming more to the effect of you had issues with the actual voting itself.
Well, that is the next bit. Because
Which
let's say we take out.
I read it. I do agree. The fact that it went into play while you guys were openly campaigning, I don't necessarily agree with.
Yep. And I want to stipulate. Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, please.
Even when you take residency off the table, because it is sort of a distraction from the message, right?
I very much agree.
Is that now we're talking about the Constitution gives us the right to vote. It does not stipulate the limitations around residencies. And therefore, I am arguing that it's a constitutional violation to prevent any citizen in San Andreas to be prevented from being able to vote for a mayor of both counties. And I want to be clear here. I want to be very underlinedly clear. This announcement by the DOJ, you gave me and Eve a free election.
Oh, I'm well aware.
And I am standing here not because, and I'm with you. I want that. I do. I genuinely want people to declare their residencies. We tried very hard the first month, and we just roadblock after roadblock. There's just no good way to put it in, and we couldn't do it through profiles because it was considered internal documents. I don't know, a bunch of mumbo jumbo. You know what I mean? But the general concern I come back to is the reason I've taken this pitchfork is even if I know that overturning this makes my campaign more difficult, I believe it is the right thing to do, as I strongly believe that everything needs to be derived from the Constitution and not working backwards, which I believe is what this was, unintentionally, mind you.
No, I can see your point. I do think it was The implementation of this was entirely for it to go to the system that it was always meant to be once we split the counties. Um, the timing of it, I will give you, poor, but it's still to the effect. It's still technically not a constitutional failure. They still have a right to vote while it is one mayor. I do agree with the residency thing. If we'll change the terminology, I will
Yeah,
talk to
but
them about that one.
well, let me make an argument. This is going to be kind of a half-assed argument, but
Go for it.
I don't think they have the right to vote because it would be the equivalent to, you know, you have a referendum take place and you say, well, pick your. I'm going to try to find something that's appropriate. Register your vehicle in terms of how many car doors it has and whether you vote yes or no to this legislation. You know what I'm saying? Like, so by adding a compoundedness to it, right, you can't just say you have the right to vote while producing a compound
I don't believe
election
it is
option.
compound, though. It is you have a right to vote, and they would be voting for a mayor.
And a residency. It's not just the mayor. Yeah.
Mm,
You're requiring that's the problem. It's
that's
compound.
why it is the compound, which is the issue. I can understand your point again.
Yeah. So
here's my failure. Again, this is coming from a place of when I was not appointed, and I am trying to understand the thought process of all of this as I am going. So I do apologize.
No, you're good. I enjoy these kind of. I am willing to say I'm wrong with this. I'm just very headstrong on like not understanding how this is legal, right? Because I fall back into, where does it say, elected positions, DOJ is the mechanism, right? But for the election process, but it still needs to fall under the rights and freedoms, which is the right to dignity. All citizens shall be treated equally with respect to free from discrimination. So discriminating based on their residency in San Andreas doesn't make sense to me, right? And so
hi, Mr. Mayor.
Having putting two ballot options on the same ballot is a workaround, right? Because you're not voting you should be voting on who's the mayor of Blaine County and who's the mayor of Los Santos County. Otherwise, if you start to do those kind of discriminatory or compound ballot choices and saying, well, it's just a vote, well, you might as well start compounding other things, right? How you doing, Veronica?
I don't think we need to necessarily jump to that horse just yet.
Yeah.
Veronica.
Yeah.
I can specifically coming to the rights and freedoms, the free from discrimination. I think you might actually have a case there, because that's exactly the point of why we are separating it. And if they're not able to vote for both, then what else is there?
Yeah. Agreed.
Let me speak with the rest of the DOJ. I can promise you we have been speaking about this. It's not like we've just read this and thrown it out the window.
And I don't want to be a dick with it. I want to be very clear. I made the letter because I've learned that if you don't write it down, people will misconstrue your thoughts, right? And
I can see your point.
My recommendation, we need legislation for how voting operates, mayoral and otherwise, and legislation that effectively expands on the right to dignity, and that's baked into the residency ship. So
to that exact point, we would be going down the same pipeline of we declare residencies. You will know who is a Los Santos resident. You will know who a Blaine County resident is. Law enforcement would, in fact, know those residencies. And so we would be heading in that same direction without, we're just obviously going a few steps ahead already without having those in place, which I agree you are right. Those need to be put in place.
There needs to be a way of declare. People need to know the scope of what that means, right? Because it's more of a what happens down the line. It's kind of, it's kind of like this. Like, you ever seen like 23andme.com? Like, it's like, oh, okay, yeah, sure, I'll give you my DNA, right? And then you find out 5 years later that they're using it in order to like learn steal all this data from you. Now, the reason I make that relationship is people are going to be declaring their residency and they don't know the impact of what that's going to mean,
What
or the
it'll actually
recourse, or the
cause.
way to undeclare and all that, because that's coming down the line.
That
You
is
know?
100% coming down the line with exactly what is happening. I think it was just because the election happened first. That is,
Yeah.
the thing that we're seeing in front of our faces. But the declaration of residency, the not being able to own businesses in either county if you don't live in that county, law enforcement's knowledge of your residency, all of that will go into effect. That is the exact point of this.
I would love to see things like that. Is that happening
Hmm.
soon, TM? Is that like actually something that's happening?
Work in progress.
Okay. Yeah, that'll be great.
But
Because the
you can
reality,
see, you can obviously put the puzzle pieces together before they're even like in the
yeah,
correct spot. You can see the
yeah.
signs. It's exactly what is being worked on. It
I
just
want
the election
this.
is right in front of our faces right now, and I think that's why that trigger was pulled.
I love the the finish line y'all are aiming for. I think my general concern is using the election for that without the legislation in place.
In place, and I agree,
I
but you
think
also know what is out of my hands.
understandable. I think the pragmatic nature of it too is, like, I'm
Mm.
just going to shoot straight, right?
No, I
Um,
appreciate that.
I'm going to have most of the city, LSPD, is going to vote for me. I don't have to.
I could see that clearly from being in that room.
Yeah, it's I did not.
Annihilated Ludson. That was
I
actually humorous.
genuinely am being forced into running again. You can
Why is
ask my.
that?
That goes into a lot of details.
Fair enough.
It's you know, I wasn't gonna run until yesterday night. It's a lot of work. It's been a lot of work the last 3 months. I don't know if I've got the energy, but I think there's a lot of fear of the side effects if I don't. So,
Right. Okay.
but I genuinely want to see this to the end. But here's the thing: a lot of people are going to vote for me.
I was gonna
They've
say,
already
with or
told me.
without this being in effect,
The
you more
problem
than likely
becomes
have this in the bag. So I'm
I'm a
unsure of what rock I'll
constitutionalist.
actually be. I appreciate being a listen, I'm a judge.
Yeah,
Uh, I don't understand what is actually going to change. At least for your
I
scope.
think Pred gets fucked.
Fred's gonna get fucked no matter what.
I think there would have been a fair fight between him and Eve. But what's going to happen now, and I'll give you some examples, is as a side effect of this last minute thing, I'll give you an example. Saints who are in bed with Blaine County, right,
Hmm.
are going to go and vote for Eve, right? And indirectly, so is ADMC. They're going to go declare themselves just to get Eve a vote. But in the same way, people up north in Polito, which I've got a lot of support up there, all right, are going to go declare themselves and vote for me. So it's actually going to do the opposite of the intent, right?
Right.
Because people are going to want to ensure that their candidates win one of the two, right? You kind of see where I'm going with this? So the
I
vote
think
is
then
unlikely
that's
to
why
be
it's not discrimination and it's not unconstitutional, at least in the eyes of the DOJs, because the people have a choice.
I think that should be heard in court, even if it doesn't go the way it is. That's kind of why I bring it up, right?
Okay.
I want it to spur conversation, and
I think it should.
I think
This
that's healthy.
whole new way of we're operating with the separate counties. I think there wasn't enough of a conversation.
Very
I
true.
want to keep people pushing people to having a better understanding of what this actually would mean for them.
Absolutely,
Mm. All right.
absolutely.
Well, let me bring your
Yeah.
points to the rest of the DOJ because I promise you, we're literally having a conversation about it right now.
Okay. Good. Good. Good.
Um,
And
Other
please
than
do
that,
let them know. Obviously, I have to present my letters in a certain way, but I tried to keep it as, you know, it's got to have passion.
yeah, of course, you were very
Yeah.
tame, surprised Pikachu face. It was appreciated.
Yep. All right. Easy. All right. Well, thank you very much, Your Honor.
Anytime. Quick, actually, endeavor. If you are reelected, I would like to talk about a pipeline avenue of when we see you approved business licenses. and having a bit more communication with the DOJ for us to sign off on it. Because if not, we're just blindly having to look at that business app every day and be like, did Nino go through any of these today? And like, just go through all of them.
I have the exact same problem because my staff also looks over it. They don't have access to it, so we have to put it into spreadsheets and stuff. And the way that it was told to me by Weiss and Angels, just give them a heads up when they got it. So I agree with you. The process sucks, but I think without any technical alterations to the business app thing that we have access to, it's very hard to do the communication because we do the same thing. We're like, all right, did this get approved? Did that get approved?
Yeah.
How do we know this?
That's the thing. Because like we don't percent off on anything until you sign off on it.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be asking the same thing of Eve or Pred when he gets or that she gets elected. Hopefully just a bit of a notice. If I believe Weiss is doing more of the business stuff. Me and McNee are trying to head up more of bar. But if Weiss gets a heads up, I'm sure he'd appreciate it.
I think what we could always do is, I mean, open up a Discordia email chain for mayor and DOJ, and we just @ people.
I like that. I can get behind that.
That's probably the easiest way to do it.
Okay, I'll talk to the state about getting that set up after the elections end.
Okay, easy.
Perfect.
All right. Thank you very much.
Well, anytime, Nino. I'll talk to you soon.
All right. Hey, sorry about that, Ava.
No worries, no worries.